The concept of being able to remember a past life or even knowing of past lives is something that is different in many cultures. However, what we cannot deny is that there are people who claim to remember their past lives, and they can be scarily accurate in many cases. Most of the people who remember past lives without regression therapy are children or adults who remember the details as children and slowly forget these memories over time. For some people, however, the memories stick and have lasting effects on their new lives. Check out these stories of 10 children who remembered their past lives in frighteningly accurate ways that will make you a believer. Hanan Mansur and Suzanne Ganem. The tale of Hanan Mansur and Suzanne Ganem is a strange and wonderful one that will make even the staunchest of non-believers think about the afterlife. Hanan Mansur was born in Lebanon in the 1930s and had 2 children, Leila and Galere, by her husband Farouk. During her second pregnancy, Hanan developed heart problems, which caused her doctors to recommend that she refrain from having more children. She decided to go against their advice and became pregnant with her son in 1962. At this time, she told Farouk that she was going to be reincarnated and have much to say about her previous life. When her heart condition worsened a year later, she flew to Richmond, Virginia for an operation and passed away while recovering. Before she passed away, she made an attempt to call her daughter Leila, which was unsuccessful. 10 days later, Suzanne Ganem was born. At just 16 months, she began to pick up her parents' telephone and repeatedly say, "Hello, Leila?" Her family had no idea what was going on, of course, but as she grew, she was able to name 13 members of her family and was eventually accepted by Farouk as a member of his family. Rashid Khadej and Daniel Jurdi. On a sunshine-drenched day in 1968, a mechanic named Rashid Khadej went on a road trip to Military Beach in Beirut with his friend Ibrahim. Rashid lost control of the car and, unfortunately, both men did not survive the crash. 1 year later, a boy named Daniel Jurdi was born, and his very first words were Ibrahim. As he aged, Daniel began to ask to go home. At 2 years old, he stated that his parents were not his parents and that his real father had passed away. According to him, his real father's name was Naim. This was the name of Rashid's father. In an even spookier turn of events, Daniel and his parents drove past the place at which Rashid and Ibrahim had crashed. He stated, "This is where I passed away." He also recognized Rashid's sister without having seen her before, and still has a phobia of cars due to his past life experiences. Anne Frank and Barbo Carlin. The story of Anne Frank is one that we all know, but what most people don't realize is that there is another hidden part of the story. As we all know, Anne Frank tragically passed away in 1945 in Bergen-Belsen concentration camp. What most people do not know is that 9 years later, a girl named Barbo Carlin was born, and as soon as she could speak, she started to claim that her parents were not her real parents. She also had frequent nightmares that armed men were breaking down the attic door, but her parents discounted these as childish fantasies gone dark. Barbara became aware that her past life lined up with that of the famous Anne Frank and began to hide her memories until, at the age of 10, she visited Amsterdam with her parents and found the Anne Frank house without directions. She knew the inside eerily well and took her parents directly to Anne's hiding place. Barbara still suffers side effects and phobias thanks to her previous life memories, which is truly scary when you think about it. Imagine having to live with the consequences of such memories for not one lifetime, but 2. Kendra Carter. The case of Kendra Carter stands out as being particularly creepy, however. Kendra Carter was just 4 years old when her mother took her to swimming practice for the first time. That is where she met her coach, who she claimed had been her mother in a past life. Kendra claimed that her coach, ex-mother, had aborted her. She developed a close relationship with her coach, but her birth mother got into a fight with the coach, who she forbade from talking to Kendra. Kendra went into a depression and would not talk to her mother for 5 months until she was allowed to see the coach again. Her other mother's name was Sally. Some stories of young children remembering their past lives are heartbreaking, especially when you consider the fact that they would cause their parents real pain through some of their claims. In one case found online, a 23-year-old mother had reported that her 4-year-old daughter kept talking about her other mother. She claimed that her other mother's name was Sally and that she passed away on a Thursday a long time ago. She said that she found her daddy's gun and there was an accident that involved Sally. The young mom confessed that she had never told her daughter about guns and was at a loss as to how she should deal with the situation. Remembers details about the Titanic. To remember the details of one's past life in adulthood is a rare thing, but it can be very distressing for the people who experience it. Take the confession of one woman who chose not to name herself, wherein she speaks of waking up at age 12 to the distinct feeling of being on a rocking ship. She felt claustrophobic and nauseous, but tried to ignore it. When she returned from school that day, she watched a documentary about the Titanic. Despite having no prior knowledge, she found she could identify many of the people by name. Then in 2016, she saw the Titanic exhibition in Copenhagen and got this strange feeling as she walked into reconstructed second-class cabins. She saw a ring that was noted to belong to a female second-class passenger who was never identified and somehow just knew it was hers. Elijah. Children are master storytellers, and sometimes it can be hard to tell where their stories end and the truth begins. There are some things, however, that no child would make up. Elijah's story is one such case. While with his grandmother, Elijah suddenly proclaimed, "I passed away in this house." Then he rubbed his eyes with his fists as if crying. But despite his grandmother's attempts to get him to elaborate, he said nothing further and clearly wanted to move on. When they visited a cemetery containing a loved one, he became very upset at the sight of a freshly covered grave. He mumbled about having passed away and that it hurt, but would say no more. Despite a year having passed and his grandmother repeatedly talking to him about this, Elijah remains silent on the issue. Kindergartner struggles with learning alphabet. We already accept the fact that knowledge must be learned, and yet when children show signs of extraordinary knowledge, we start making excuses as to how they may have gained it. Sometimes, however, we just have to accept that the knowledge has been inherited from a past version of themselves. One man speaks about how his daughter had trouble learning letters in kindergarten. She was mixing up B's and V's and H's and N's. Strange letter combinations for sure. She kept asking what the letters sounded like and said, "I don't remember those." When he showed her an H, she claimed that it made an N sound and said she thought there were more letters. He asked her what those were, and she wrote down Russian letters P, L, Ya, Che, I, Se. "There are some more than that too," she said, and stated that her brother Vlad had taught her before he disappeared. A Scottish pub crawl. One man gives his own confession in a strange but more whimsical way. He speaks of being around about 4 years of age on a trip through Scotland with his parents. He had never been to the country before, and so when they stopped by a pub in a small Cairngorm village and he declared, "Oh, my favorite place," his parents were understandably confused. He was able to tell his father where the toilets were, behind a fake wall, and told his mother that his favorite spot was by the fire. Though there was no fire, he pointed it out and told her things about the pub and area in great detail. She shrugged most of it off, but when he claimed he had once lived there and said his name was Fred and that he was the owner, she inquired with a member of staff about Fred. They responded, "Oh, no, sorry, miss. Fred passed away over 10 years ago now." Sinking feeling. Children who remember their past lives can sometimes remember strange and wonderful things. In some cases, however, it's less clear-cut and less cheerful. One mother recalls the moment when her 4-year-old daughter claimed to remember drowning. The woman was sent a card by a family member which showed a watercolor representation of a small boat on a lake. She thought it was just a childish fantasy when her daughter claimed that she had been on a boat like it. Her mother asked her if that was so, and she replied, "Yeah, I passed away there." Her mother was so shocked that she asked her to explain what it was she meant. She replied, "I was in the boat, I hit my head and I fell in the water. I kept falling and falling, but then I went to God." And she raised her arms up in the air. Her mother was speechless, understandably, and reports that she is now 12 years old and has no memory of what she said that day. Furthermore, she has no fear of boating and loves it. We hope you enjoyed this video. We want to know if you believe in previous lives. Have you or anyone you know experienced this? Let us know in the comments. And if you liked this video, like, share, and don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications so you will be the first to know when we get a new video for you. Thanks for watching.